guys, welcome to this video update of Whimsy, and you might be wondering, why is she standing on a road? Why is there a horse trailer there? And what is going on? Well, my leading sessions and haltering were going really well, and this is me leading her out of the pen for the very first time, and you can see she follows me really nicely. A little bit of a moment where she goes by the barrel, but no big deal. It's her first time out of the pen, and I love getting my horses out of the pen to go grazing with me on the grass, and so that's what we were doing. But now we're in a stall, and you can see I'm kind of petting her and making sure she's okay with me again. And something big happened while she went out for her first time. And it's a real big fluke. I feel like 2023 was the year of many flukes for me because this did happen in the summer. But basically, when I take my Mustangs out of the pen for the first time, I try to do as much preparation as I can in the little pen where they live, but I'm trying to get them out as quickly as possible because I want them to go out and eat grass. And our property is fully fenced, so even though they sometimes do spook at something and run a little bit away and then I go walk over and get them again, it's really not the end of the world because they just go over to the grass or they go over to where their pen was where they felt safer, and then we try again and it's no big deal. And that's how we also get ourselves to the arena or to the barn and things like that. For Whimsy, what ended up happening for her is our gate to our neighbor's property happened to be open. I guess somebody had opened it and forgot to shut it, and my fault for not going over and checking. So when she spooked and ran, she actually happened to go through that gate, which is kind of interesting because it's only like a very small opening on our property, and the fact that she didn't stop at the 3 feet tall grass to stop and graze before she got over there, I have no idea why. But she stopped on our neighbor's property, and I started to walk my way over there to go get the rope, and that's usually not a big deal. The problem came when our neighbor saw a horse with a halter on and thought, oh, I better zip over and help them catch it. So he rode over on his ATV planning to pick up the rope. But when he got close to Whimsy, he terrified her. And not by doing anything mean or anything like that, but just horses in the wild, they're rounded up by often helicopters or machines, like people ride around on ATVs, things like that. And it's not a great experience for them. They don't have the training yet to know that somebody zooming up to you on an ATV is actually a good thing. You know, they could be coming to help you. They don't know that. They don't understand that yet. And even though they've seen us, drive the tractor back and forth to bring them hay, or my husband does have an ATV and sometimes he zips around to move the manure buckets and stuff like that, it's all different when you're wild and you're out of the pen for the first time. And she ended up getting triggered into a real flight mode of being panicked because she started, running the whole perimeter of our neighbor's fencing, ended up jumping in and out of cow pastures and going miles. I'm not entirely sure how far she went because we tracked her. She kept getting out of our view line and we were tracking her. And as we were going down, we ended up having to go get our ATV so that way we could go down the trails because we could not stay caught up on foot. And I didn't want to go in a vehicle because then I can't go on the same path that she was going on. When we finally caught up to her, she was on a cow farm and kept jumping in and out of the cow pasture, going down the far end and then back. And she still somehow had her lead rope and halter still on her. I have no idea how it survived that many miles of running because it did have a snap that totally could break. But she still had the halter on. She still had the lead rope on, and she was just running around with it. And eventually, as we're just kind of then parked and, kind of waiting for her to get to a place where she would stop and get out of that flight mode, then we would get her. And the way that ended up happening is as she jumped out of the cow pasture, the rope got caught on a tree and ended up pulling her down. Like she ended up getting kind of pretty firmly kind of fell down to the ground. And it actually was as she was jumping out. So she jumped out to the road, she kind of fell down to the ground. And it was really kind of hard to watch because we'd been bonding really well. Things were going really nicely. She knew that I cared for her and I was brushing her and, putting the cream on her, and she was doing really amazing. And we were getting a great connection. And it was just really unfortunate that something spooked her into that flight mode. And that can happen. And on the Harmony Energy scale, when we're teaching in our Harmony Horsemanship, we talk about the energy scale and that when horses hit a 10, they go fight or flight, and that is a full panic mode to the point where there's virtually nothing you can do other than try to just keep the environment safe and keep yourself safe, because they can run in such a blind panic or fight in such a blind panic that they hurt themselves because they're not thinking clearly. They're just thinking, I got to get away. And even though we had parked our ATV, there was no loud noises anymore. The cow farmer where she ended up was amazing and was able to call all of his cows in from the herd. Like, he just was able to call them in to come inside. And I thought that was pretty awesome that he was able to do that, because he was worried that with her running around that it might get the cows all stirred up and running, and then they might go running through a fence, and we might end up in a situation where we got a loose Mustang and a whole bunch of cows, and that would be pretty intense and not what we wanted to do. So she seemed to be in, decent shape, just with these scratches on her, and she has a bit of a puncture wound on her side. And then I was a little bit worried about her head because she was still wearing the halter, and the snap for the lead rope never broke or anything. And she's not in one of our fusion halters. She was in just a regular rope halter. And just because it was one that fit her a little better. And sometimes when I'm training them to start with, I put them in a regular rope halter versus our fusion halter with the ring that slides underneath, because sometimes they step on the rope and things like that, and I'd rather it be the lead rope snap that breaks rather than the halter that breaks. So that's why we did that. And now I'm just trying to take care of her. And when she fell, I was able to go over to her and give her a really large dose of sedation, because we had to get her on the trailer and get her home. And our training, although it was progressing really well, not at a point where I felt like I could do trailer loading with her, especially on a road, beside a cow farm, when she was already panicked and upset. So I gave her a large dose of sedation and then brought her home. And so this is now the next morning after she's had a night in the stall, is just trying to get her taken care of and just clean her up a little bit. And so what I'm doing is I've got a helper who's holding the rope, but you can see that they're very much at a distance. And so this is because I didn't want to put Whimsy on cross ties to hold her. I also did not want to just tie her, do a hard tie and get her in a position where she was panicked. I wanted her to be okay. My training up until this point has been me working with Whimsy. I haven't introduced other people yet, and that's typical of the way that I start training with Mustangs, is I often do the first sort of things myself, and then I'll bring in somebody after the fact. And remember, Whimsy had only been out of the pen her very first time, so we just hadn't gotten there yet. Sometimes I'll have people feed them grass through the pen, or if I have other helpers, I'll get them to come in and do some touches too. But it's not uncommon to wait till I get a little further into the training process before I start having other people come around and touch. So before calling out the vet, there were a couple things. One, I wanted her to come off of the sedation, kind of assess how she was doing. I wanted to touch and clean her up a little bit myself. And the reasons for that, when horses are on sedation, although it can calm them and can be okay, and we gave her enough that we could get her into a trailer, trusting me for that process to get that sedation. Horses' adrenaline can actually kick in and they can fight over top of it, and they can actually get more fighty because they're just so panicked from feeling the sedation, they're scared, all of those things, that they can be more kicky panicking. And I didn't want to risk any of that. I knew as we were putting her into the stall, she actually did kick out at a wall because she just didn't understand everything that was going on. And she saw the door behind her and she kicked. And we were very careful to make sure that we didn't have any people around. Of course, there you can see a chicken is walking into the barn. But you never know. So I want to make sure that I keep the vet safe, and I want to give Whimsy a chance to just come out of that real adrenaline state and be okay, and then invite the vets to come take a look at her. You can see the chicken actually goes into the stall behind my back. I didn't even know my door is even shut to my barn, but somehow it snuck in there. And you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just caring for Whimsy. I'm rubbing all around her. She had a little bit of rain rot, so I'm just kind of putting the oil on there and helping treat that, because I was just thinking, I'll just make sure she remembers I take care of her. We bond. I'm gentle. You can trust me, because she had a really traumatic experience the day before, and I wanted to make sure she was okay. And one of the things for vet care is I knew that with the wound on her side, which I'll show you guys in a little bit, that although it doesn't look wonderful, it's probably not getting stitched closed. It probably needs to drain, and the priority is keeping it clean. And then whatever, if anything is happening with her head, there's no need to get that X-ray done, that night. It could wait until the next day because even if something's not going on, probably the solution's going to be rest or something like that, or mashed food, which are things that we would do anyways. But I want to get that confirmation from the vet, but ultimately I want to set my horse up for success. So I've got the barn doors shut, I've got a nice quiet atmosphere, I've got a helper, but they're staying at a distance because I just want to make sure that nobody's going to get hurt. So here I'm giving her some fluids, and I'm giving her a little bit of our chill paste because I love omega alpha products, and chill is like a natural calming supplement. So I'm giving her that. And my helper is, you can see on the other side of a wall through the stall holding the rope because we're going to be guiding her into the stall. But when you're new into the training process and the horse has had a experience, you want to do the things that can kind of keep you safe, which means you want to always have a flight path. You want to have a way out. And in my barn, the stalls do not have a way out. It's a concrete wall with bars straight up. So if the horse were to go into another panic mode, you would be trapped. And so instead of me going into the stall with her and then having to turn around in there just in case she gets panicked again and kicks out at the wall, we're going to do this method where we have this rope, this really, really long rope, and we're going to guide her into the stall using that rope. So that way we can turn around without having to be in the stall with her, because we're literally going to kind of like pass the rope through the bars to the front of the stall. And then that way we're guiding her in and leading her, but we're not getting a stranger too close to her. And I'm not going into a concrete box with metal bars trapped in there, because that would just be a potential recipe for disaster. And I don't want to scare her. Even if I jumped up onto the bars up high, that could be scary for her too. So we're trying to do everything in the kindest way possible, where we're patient with her. You can see I'm giving her a little bit more there, and she's doing really well with taking the fluids and the syringes. She's letting me handle her. She thinks it's kind of yucky. She's like, what is this stuff that you're trying to do to me? And I'm just helping her get a little bit of nutrition as well, a little bit of electrolytes, because she's not used to getting supplements or grain or anything like that. We were only just starting to take cookies, so this is all new for her. So she's got to get used to all that stuff. So I put a bandage on her. She let me completely wrap her up, and I've got a little catch rope on her so that way I'll be able to get her a little easier for the vet. And then the vet comes up, and look how good she is. She stood so well for the sedation, and then the fact that she was able to start from a place where she felt calm and trusting and get that sedation means she's not hyped up on adrenaline. And although you can give horses more sedation, they get to a point where like if they're still fighting over top, they become so unstable and wobbly that they're probably actually going to end up laying down, and then you can't do the things that you want to do as well. So the fact that we were able to just give a normal amount of sedation, and then they were able to get in close, and look at this, doing the x-rays. They've got that plate on the one side of her head. They're wearing these funny costumes. It's a bright shining light, and she just did super amazing. And then they use clippers to trim the hair around the puncture wound. There's the puncture wound, and they cut away a little bit of the debris, like the tissue that didn't look like it was super healthy. So they made it super clean. They tubed her to make sure she had fluids and gave her a little bit of nutrition that way. And the x-rays all came back normal. So thank goodness nothing bad happened. And they inserted a drain so that way the wound can heal, because it's a little bit deep. We have no idea what she punctured herself on, probably on a stick or something. And now she's got that to just help make sure that that heals. She's eating hay, and I just feel so happy that she's going to be okay. So when tricky things happen, I just focus on what are the next steps and what can I do to help. Remember to subscribe and check out harmonyhorsemanship.com for even more learning.